Welcome to the Marketing Behind Rapid Growth, the podcast where we explore the strategies, decisions, and growth engines behind some of the world's most successful technology companies. Today, we're talking about Riverside. Picture this. It's the spring of 2020. The world has just gone quiet. Professional recording studios, the kind with foam padded walls and $1,000 microphones, are sitting empty. And in Beersheba, a city in southern Israel, a young programmer named Gideon Keeson is serving as a lone soldier, far from his family, checking his phone between duties. A message comes in from his brother, Nadav. It's not casual news. It's this. Hillary Clinton is recording a podcast, and she's doing it on the software Gideon built in his spare time. No office, no investors, a team of two brothers. And suddenly, one of the most recognizable political figures on the planet is using their product. That's where this story starts. But it's not really a story about a lucky break. It's a story about what happens after the lucky break, when a scrappy product-led darling has to grow up, professionalize, and figure out how to turn word-of-mouth magic into something a CFO can actually measure. This is Riverside. Let's start with the problem nobody had quite named yet. When the pandemic pushed creators, journalists, and broadcasters into their spare bedrooms, it exposed a gap. Everyone was using video conferencing tools like Zoom. But Zoom wasn't built for this. It was built for real-time conversation, which meant it aggressively compressed audio and video so calls could survive shaky home internet connections. For a business meeting, that's a minor annoyance. A blurry frame, a little pixelation, nobody cares. But for a flagship podcast or a news interview, compression is a disaster. It's the difference between broadcast quality sound and something that sounds like it was recorded in a tin can. Here's the twist. The Keeson brothers had already solved this problem. They just didn't know it yet. Back in 2019, they'd built a platform for hosting remote political debates, and the engineering behind that platform turned out to be exactly what the podcasting world would desperately need a few months later. Sometimes the biggest growth unlocks aren't new inventions. They're existing solutions meeting a market that finally caught up to the problem. So, what did Riverside actually build? The idea was simple to describe and brutally hard to execute. Stop fighting the unreliability of the internet and route around it entirely. Instead of capturing a live, compressed stream, Riverside recorded high-fidelity, uncompressed audio and up to 4K video locally, right on each participant's own device. While the conversation was happening, those massive files quietly uploaded to the cloud in the background. By the time the interview wrapped, the producer had separate, broadcast-grade tracks for every single speaker. It was as if everyone had been sitting together in the same expensive studio, even if they were actually scattered across 3 continents. And here's a detail that matters more than it might seem. Because the brothers had no funding at first, they couldn't afford to give the product away for free and hope to monetize later. They had to charge from day one. That's a forcing function. It meant they got an honest, fast signal about real demand. When paying customers, established media brands among them, started signing up and staying, the founders knew they weren't sitting on a nice side project. They were sitting on a business. Now, a great product with early paying customers is a strong start, but markets don't stay empty. As Riverside raised money, seed funding from Zeev Ventures, a Series A led by Alexis Ohanian's Fund 776, and a Series B led again by Zeev. Competitors like Zencastr and Descript were crowding the same space. So Riverside had to keep moving, and the moves it made tell you a lot about how the company thought about growth. It built a full web-based editor, turning what had been a recording utility into an actual editing platform, instantly widening its audience beyond hardcore audio engineers to everyday creators who just wanted something simple. It leaned hard into AI with a feature called Magic Clips, which automatically scans a long recording and pulls out the most compelling moments, reformatted for TikTok, YouTube Shorts, and Instagram Reels. We'll come back to that feature in a minute because it's more strategically important than it sounds. The team also hardened the technology itself. Browser-based recording is fragile. A single Chrome update can quietly break local recording permissions and ruin someone's session. So Riverside built proprietary background uploading technology and eventually a standalone desktop app to get out from under that fragility. And finally, it changed its own identity. It dropped the .fm from its name and became simply Riverside. No longer a podcaster's tool, but a broader communications platform offering webinars, CRM integrations, and AI translation built for corporate use. Every one of those moves was really answering the same underlying question. How do we stop being a nice tool for a niche hobby and start being infrastructure for people who will pay real enterprise money? For a long time, Riverside didn't need much of a traditional marketing engine at all. The product sold itself. Someone would be a guest on a podcast, notice how good the recording sounded, ask the host what they were using, and go sign up. That's about as pure as product-led growth gets. And the company reinforced it by bringing on creators like Marcus Brownlee and Casey Neistat as investors, names that lent instant, hard-to-buy credibility in exactly the community Riverside needed to win over. But here's the wall every product-led company eventually hits. Word of mouth is fantastic at generating individual signups. It is terrible at closing enterprise deals. A procurement team at a media conglomerate is not going to greenlight a platform-wide contract because a producer liked the sound quality on a podcast they listened to on their commute. To go upmarket, Riverside needed something it had never really built before, a marketing machine it could actually steer, measure, and scale on purpose. And this is where the story gets genuinely instructive, because the way Riverside built that machine runs against the instinct most growth teams have. By the time Riverside was in its peak scaling phase, it was reportedly spending close to $500,000 a month on paid acquisition across Google, Meta, and YouTube. That's a serious budget. And there was a serious problem underneath it. The spend couldn't be cleanly tied to revenue. Platform-reported conversions were inflated. The platforms themselves have every incentive to make their own ads look effective. And Apple's iOS privacy changes had gutted the ability to track multi-touch user journeys across devices and apps. In plain terms, Riverside was spending real money into a funnel it could no longer accurately see through. Most growth teams facing that situation do one of two things. They either panic and cut spend, or they double down and hope volume covers for the lack of precision. Riverside did neither. The growth team paused optimization entirely and rebuilt the measurement layer from the ground up. They moved to server-side tracking, which is more reliable and less dependent on browser cookies or platform pixels that can be blocked or degraded. And critically, they repointed their conversion events. Instead of optimizing toward lead captures, a vanity metric that looks great on a slide but says nothing about whether someone actually became a paying, retained customer, they optimized toward warehouse-verified subscription revenue, the actual dollars that actually landed. Once that data was clean, something interesting happened. The team stopped treating Google, Meta, and YouTube as interchangeable buckets in a cost-per-acquisition spreadsheet. Each channel carries a different kind of buyer intent. Someone searching on Google is often further along than someone scrolling past an ad on Instagram. So budget got reallocated toward the campaigns that were actually producing paying users and pulled away from the ones that merely looked good on a dashboard. The company credits this discipline, running paid acquisition like a P and L instead of a popularity contest, with a 337% lift in net recurring revenue. That number is worth sitting with for a second. It didn't come from spending more. It came from being willing to spend less blindly, pause, and fix the lens before pointing the camera again. Two habits kept that turnaround from being a one-time fix. First, creative was treated as an ongoing operational function, not a quarterly project that a team dusts off 4 times a year. New ad concepts shipped on a regular cadence. Weak performers got cut within days, not months. Winners got scaled aggressively. That kept ad accounts from going stale, which is one of the quiet killers of paid growth at scale. Second, Riverside built out real revenue operations, wiring marketing data directly into Salesforce and HubSpot, so that marketing, sales, and customer success were all looking at the same customer journey instead of 3 separate half-true versions of it. And the company shifted its headline metric away from top-of-funnel lead volume towards something much harder to fake, the rate at which qualified leads actually closed. So what can operators actually take from Riverside's story? 3 things stand out. First, fix your measurement before you scale your spend. Pouring more budget into a funnel you can't accurately read isn't optimization. It's gambling with a bigger stack of chips. Server-side, revenue-based attribution needs to come before heavy paid media, not after the fact as damage control. Second, remember that product features can be marketing in disguise. Magic Clips wasn't just a nice convenience for users. Every time someone used it to cut a highlight for TikTok or YouTube Shorts, they were quietly promoting their own show, and by extension promoting Riverside, Watermark, and all. The best growth loops don't feel like marketing to the user. They feel like a favor. And third, let your identity evolve with the market you're actually chasing. Holding on to the .fm in the name would have kept Riverside anchored to the creator economy forever. Dropping it and repositioning around webinars, CRM integrations, and internal communications opened up enterprise budgets that dwarf what any individual podcaster was ever going to pay. Riverside's path runs from a small apartment in Beersheba to a platform trusted across media companies and enterprise communications teams. And what makes it worth studying isn't just the technical achievement, solving the packet loss compression problem that Zoom never had to solve. It's the moment the founders recognized that the thing that got them here, organic, product-led momentum, wasn't going to be the thing that got them to the next stage. They rebuilt the engine. They tied every dollar of spend back to real revenue. And they turned their own product into a distribution channel. The technology opened the door. Disciplined marketing is what walked the company through it. This was the marketing behind rapid growth. See you in the next episode.